Joe Sestak, good to have you again.
It's good to be with you, Steve. Thanks a lot.
We're all over the lot, as I said, Joe. We're talking about a number of different issues. It all relates, I believe, to how well we are mentally, physically, how we receive and obtain our health care, who we go to for help when times get tough. Tell us a little bit about how that plays into your campaign, Joe.
Well, I'm a big believer that national security actually begins at home, in our health and education security. Look, in the military, everybody gets health care. The military doesn't do it because we're liberal. The military does it because they want to have warriors who are ready to go in a moment. And they also don't want them worried about their families at home. That's why we do it. And you know what? We lose $100 billion a year, Steve, as you probably know, because of the under and uninsured before the Affordable Care Act. And finally, when you have 167 Pennsylvanians losing their health care every day for the decade before the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, was passed, something's not working to give families the security they need. To play my campaign, look, I got in because my daughter had brain cancer. At 4 years old, given 3 to 9 months to live, she fought like a warrior. Only 8% of kids survived because of our military health care plan. She was one of those. And so I got into Congress for one reason, that everybody should have that opportunity. So to me, it's personal, not just campaign. Everyone should have the opportunity to be healthy, a chance to be the most productive citizen we can have, so the whole of the United States benefits.
We talk about a variety of concerns, health concerns. We talk about the need for pediatric care, for senior care, and everything in between. We talk about the need for physical health and mental health. One issue that I don't believe, and I believe you're in agreement, is given nearly enough attention when it comes to health care is autism. You're addressing that issue, from what I understand, on your campaign trail. Tell us a little bit about that concern.
I absolutely will. You know, you could take Lackawanna County or all of Pennsylvania, but one out of every 68 children born this year will have autism. When I entered Congress, it was 1 out of every 125. Something's up. When I was in Congress, I was so concerned about it, I actually was able to fund the first increase in autism funding to begin the kind of teacher, the type of help that they need, the kind of healthcare help they need, the type of research that's needed to address this issue. $29 million. But I didn't add to the debt. I found 2 programs that weren't needed any longer, and the Army didn't want them anymore. But I'm very concerned because with this epidemic happening, it is actually going to hurt our productivity, because if the right educational tools aren't there for the child to become a more productive citizen of our nation, well, then we all suffer. Not only that, the impact upon a family can be up to $40,000 a year in order to have the right type of programs taking care of it. One final point, it's part of the reason why in the Affordable Care Act, I helped fight to get as one of the 10 essential benefits that had to be covered, what's often called behavioral disorders, of which autism was included in it. The problem is that it is not being enforced properly, so those with autism get the proper type of physical therapy, occupational therapy, the type of psychology therapy to help them become productive members. And so that's why I'm going to continue this fight, because families are being burdened by this, and we have an opportunity to have more productive citizens by the right medical and the correct healthcare addressal.
As I said, Joe, in terms of healthcare and addressing the needs of all age groups, we have a situation in northeastern Pennsylvania in Lackawanna County that we talked about at great length here recently, and that deals with the downgrading of the license by the State Department of Health of the Gino J. Murley Veterans Center. Now, that is a center named after a Medal of Honor winner from Lackawanna County, Gino Murley, a man that many people in this community actually knew. I had the honor to meet Gino Murley myself. But when we take a look at this center and the downgrading of the license, a lot of issues have come to light with regard to patient care. I have tried to make contact with the Department of Health, with the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, which runs this long-term care center. I can't get a response from the press secretary. I can't get anybody to walk me through that center, which is what they ask everybody to do who wants to see the quality care they provide. I don't get guests to talk about this, yet there was a recent news story that said everything is just fine. It's not what you read in the paper. My concern, Joe, is that it is exactly what we're reading in the paper as a result of reports that took a look at the lack of quality care at the Murley Center. What do you tell anybody who wants some reassurance, who wants some guarantee that that veterans care at the Gino Murley Center is in fact up to standard and even above standard? How do we find out, Joe?
Steve, this is an issue I fought when I was in Congress. The need for transparency is vital. When I was a congressman, a similar long-term care center, it was called the Long-Term Care Institute, I think it was called, our living center in Philadelphia, VA. There was an inspection, and live maggots were found falling out of the foot wound of one of our senior vets that was living there. Urine in a plastic container to where the vet couldn't get out of bed was sitting next to his eggs for hours on end. And yet, we never would have known if when a Freedom of Information Act was submitted, if inadvertently they had not released it even before they had to. I therefore went and tried to pass the Transparency for America's Hero Act. I can remember this so distinctly, where it was demanded that every single inspection report has to be made public immediately. In the case here in Pennsylvania that you're talking about, when they do an inspection report, it doesn't have to be released for 60 days. And by the way, that center has had recurring problems that you're talking about. Look, this is a call for transparency that has to be done. And I actually went to see General Sestak on my way out because I talked to his chief of staff about this act. And I had great respect for General Sestak, who headed the VA. But I said, we need a call for transparency. How can we have confidence that our vets are being taken care of when withheld is an inspection that actually has live maggots falling out of the foot wound? And in your case, right there with our fellow vets, there were bed bugs that were repeatedly being found. Unacceptable. And this is something that I would have hoped by now had been fixed after I left Congress.
Well, we're going to continue to apply pressure. I'm in the process of filing right-to-know requests. I'm in the process of making contact with family members who might allow me to visit their loved ones, even without the permission from the state government. And I have every intention of calling attention to this because it will not stand. Joe Sestak, what's next on your agenda as you continue to highlight these issues and make people aware of what they need to know?
Well, we're actually going to be doing autism events because I want to bring this issue more to the fore. Look, there's nothing more precious to a family than health security, followed by education security. And this is something, when we're talking about vets here, I wish people would also keep in mind, and why I believe you're harping on this so much. In the U.S. military, the autism rate is twice as high as it is for civilians that are never served in the military. And the reason is that we move every 2 or 3 years, and by the time you have the right IEP plan with the school board that you often have to fight for to get the proper type of special education for your student, you moved on. The second thing is that our funding, after I got that money increased under TRICARE in the military plan, after I left, they ended it. And so you're not getting the special type of care early on that can sometimes, with the less severe autism, actually have it disappear with the right type of care. Steve, so that's why I'm going to be stressing autism. Could I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
You know, General Beck heads the VA here, the military department here, VA, and he's excellent. I have great respect for him. I have to believe that he will be very much on this as he hears about it, if he hasn't already. But I have to tell you this, Steve, when you brought this up, all that went back to my mind is a man who was old enough to be in World War II, sitting in that VA in Philadelphia with live maggots found by an inspection report, falling out of his room. You can't even believe it can happen. Your call for transparency is exactly what's needed, basically not just in the VA, like I had in Philadelphia's medical center, but across this nation and everything. And I just hope you continue pushing it, because I will.
It sounds good to me. Joe Sestak, we'll talk with you again. Thanks so much for taking time to share with us what your ideas are.
Have a great day up there. Keep trucking on.
Okay, Joe Sestak.